The stone wall to the left of Barnaby Finch exploded inward, showering him in a spray of hot dust and ancient mortar. He coughed, tasting copper and fear, and scrambled backward on his elbows, dragging his left leg. It was useless, twisted at a sickening angle just above the ankle. Pain radiated up his shin in white-hot spikes, blurring his vision. But he forced himself to focus on the gaping hole in the castle's defense. Through the settling dust of the west corridor, he saw them. 6 silhouettes, maybe 7. They moved with the jagged, predatory grace of seasoned killers. Snatchers. The air around them crackled with the chaotic static of dark magic, smelling of ozone and rot. Barnaby checked his wand. The wood was hot to the touch, vibrating with the strain of holding a shield charm for 20 minutes straight. He was alone. The rest of the DA patrol had been scattered or incapacitated when the giants hit the courtyard. Now, between these 7 murderers and the huddled group of first years hiding in the broom closet 50 yards behind him, there was only Barnaby. Barnaby, the 7th-year Hufflepuff, who had failed his defense against the dark arts OW twice. He had 3 minutes, maybe less. That was how long it would take for the Snatchers to realize the hallway was trapped only by a single terrified boy with a broken leg. If they got past him, they would reach the portrait hole covering the younger students. It was a massacre waiting to happen. Barnaby gripped his wand, his knuckles white. He remembered the laughter in the Hufflepuff common room 3 months ago. He had been trying to invent a spell to help the house elves move heavy trunks without scratching the floor. Barnaby's Butterwalk, they called it. A useless piece of household magic, a janitor's trick. Going to polish the Dark Lord to death, Finch? A Slytherin had sneered in the hallway. Even his friends had told him to focus on Stupefy or Expelliarmus. But Barnaby had a mind for textures, for surfaces, for the physics of the world, not the violence of it. Now, facing death, that useless obsession was the only weapon he had left. If you want to know how this forgotten wizard turned a mocked cleaning charm into Hogwarts' last line of defense, stay with me until the end of this story. The lead Snatcher stepped through the rubble. He was tall, wearing a mask that had been cracked down the middle, revealing a sneering, scarred lip. He spotted Barnaby on the floor and didn't even raise his wand. He just laughed. It was a wet, grinding sound. "Look at this," the Snatcher called back to his pack. "They've left us a badger to skin. A cripple at that." Barnaby tried to scramble up, using the wall for support, but his leg gave way, and he collapsed again. The Snatchers jeered. They were enjoying this. They were savoring the fear. That was their mistake. It gave Barnaby 10 seconds. He didn't look at them. He looked at the floor. The west corridor was a long, sloping passage of smooth flagstones descending at a sharp 15-degree angle toward the junction where he lay. It was one of the oldest parts of the castle, the stone worn slick by centuries of student footsteps. "Stupefy!" Barnaby shouted, his voice cracking. A jet of red light shot from his wand, wide and clumsy. The lead snatcher lazily deflected it with a flick of his wrist. "Pathetic," he spat. "Finish 'em, boys. We have a castle to burn." Barnaby's heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. He wasn't a duelist. He wasn't a hero. He was just a boy who liked things to run smoothly. He remembered the nights in the library, poring over books on viscosity and friction coefficients, trying to understand why spells like glisseo were so limited. He had wanted something absolute, something that didn't just make stairs flat, but removed the very concept of friction from a surface. He had managed it once on a small patch of carpet. His cat had slid across it and hit the wall at shocking speed. He had felt guilty for a week. Now the snatchers were 20 yards away, 19. They were walking comfortably, confident in their victory. If this forgotten legend of Hogwarts is already touching your heart and you'd like to help keep these stories alive, you can support the channel by clicking the thanks button below the video. Every little bit helps me continue bringing you more hidden tales of courage and magic. Barnaby took a breath. He closed his eyes for a fraction of a second, visualizing the stone floor not as solid rock, but as a sheet of molecular ice, a surface with zero resistance. "Frictio nullius!" he screamed, slashing his wand not at the enemies, but at the floor directly in front of their feet. A ripple of oily, iridescent purple light shot across the stones. It wasn't a projectile. It was a wave of alteration. It washed over the corridor floor, racing up the slope, under the boots of the advancing snatchers, coating the walls up to waist height, and soaking into the very pores of the mortar. The effect was instantaneous and terrifyingly violent. The lead snatcher, mid-stride, suddenly lost all purchase on the world. It wasn't like slipping on ice. On ice, there is still texture. This was the total absence of friction. His leading foot shot forward with the speed of a fired arrow. His center of gravity vanished. His legs flew out from under him so fast that his head whipped back and cracked against the stone floor with a sickening thud. He was out cold before he stopped moving. But he didn't stop moving. Because the corridor was sloped, gravity took over instantly. The unconscious leader became a human projectile, sliding down the incline at an accelerating rate. The other 6 snatchers panicked. Instinctively, they tried to dig their heels in or grab the walls. But Barnaby's spell had coated the walls too. "What the?" one yelled, reaching for a stone torch bracket. His hand slipped off the metal as if it were greased with dragon fat. The momentum of his own grab spun him around, and he fell hard, his face slamming into the back of the man in front of him. It was chaos. Physics had turned against them. 2 of them tried to fire curses at Barnaby, but you cannot cast properly when you cannot anchor your feet. As they raised their wands, the recoil of their own arm movements sent them spinning wildly out of control. One green jet of light flew harmlessly into the ceiling, bringing down a chandelier. The chandelier crashed onto the frictionless floor and didn't shatter immediately. It slid, a spinning mass of crystal and iron, plowing into the legs of the remaining 3 Death Eaters. They were screaming now, not in mockery, but in confusion and pain. They were sliding down the corridor in a tangled, terrified heap of limbs, masks, and dark robes, gathering speed with every meter. Barnaby watched, wide-eyed, from his position at the bottom of the junction. He realized with a jolt of horror that they were coming right for him. He was the stopper in the bottle. He gritted his teeth, ignoring the screaming agony in his broken leg, and pointed his wand at the patch of floor directly in front of him, the only dry spot left. Doro! He turned his own robes to stone. It was a desperate transfiguration, weighing him down, anchoring him to the spot like a statue. The pile of snatchers collided with the invisible barrier of the spell's end, just feet from him, but their momentum carried them tumbling over each other, crashing into the far wall of the junction with bone-breaking force. The sound was awful, a crunch of bodies hitting solid masonry at 30 miles per hour. Then, silence. 6 snatchers lay in a groaning, unconscious heap. The 7th, the leader, was face down in a puddle of his own blood, his wand snapped beneath him. Barnaby cancelled the hardening charm on his robes and slumped back, gasping for air. His hand was shaking so badly he dropped his wand. The silence of the corridor was heavy, broken only by the distant boom of the battle outside. He stared at the floor. The iridescent sheen was fading. The idiot spell, the janitor's trick. It had neutralized a squad of killers in less than 10 seconds without cutting a single inch of skin. A door creaked open behind him. A small head poked out of the broom closet. It was a first-year Ravenclaw, her face streaked with tears and dust. She looked at the pile of unconscious dark wizards, then at the Hufflepuff boy clutching his broken leg. Did you duel them all?" she whispered, her eyes wide. Barnaby looked at the mess. He looked at his wand, plain and unadorned. He thought about the heroes fighting in the Great Hall. Harry, Hermione, the Order. They were fighting with fire and lightning. He had fought with grease and gravity. "Something like that," Barnaby wheezed, managing a weak smile. "But watch your step. It's a bit slippery." He didn't fight again that night. He passed out from the pain in his leg moments later. When he woke up, the sun was shining and Voldemort was dead. The history books didn't mention the Battle of the West Corridor. They listed the names of the fallen and the great duelists. Barnaby Finch went on to work in the Department of Magical Maintenance. He never became an Auror. He never sought fame. But for years afterward, whenever a new intake of first years walked down that specific corridor, some of the older students would point to the floor. They wouldn't tell the story of a great warrior. They would tell the story of the badger who made the world too slippery for evil to stand on. It's a reminder that in war, it isn't always the strongest curse that wins. Sometimes it's the person who understands how the world works and who is brave enough to change the rules when the odds are impossible. If this forgotten legend of Hogwarts touched your heart, tell me in the comments. What would you have done in Barnaby's place? Like the video, share it with another Harry Potter fan, and subscribe to hear more hidden stories of courage, magic, and impossible odds. Sometimes the most ridiculous magic is the only kind that can save us.